Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. Long time no see. Today I have got some cozy comfort food recipes that I wanted to share. Casseroles, soups, all the cozy weather vibes. All of these recipes were so delicious and really big hits for us. So I will have them all linked below. If you want to make them for your family, you can find them there. But we're gonna go ahead and get into the first one. All right, so this first one is called a cream cheese bacon green bean casserole. So to start, you'll need a couple bags of frozen green beans. You could also use canned if you would rather do that. Got some crackers back here, some fried onions, some onion soup mix, a block of cream cheese, and then just some milk. And then also down here, I've got a pack of bacon. So to start, we are gonna pour in 3 cups of milk. I'm using a dry measuring cup because I didn't have a liquid one. We're gonna go ahead and pour in 2 packets of the Lipton onion soup mix. I'm gonna mix that really well. All right, over in a separate pan, I'm gonna go ahead and start some bacon. I'm gonna fry up this whole pack of bacon, and we're just gonna fry that until it's crispy. Block of cream cheese here. I'm going to go ahead and cut that up into cubes, and we're going to drop that down into the milk and Lipton onion soup mixture, and we're just going to let that melt down and get it all mixed in. So once the cream cheese has melted down, we've got it all mixed in, I'm gonna pour in both of my bags of frozen green beans. These are 12-ounce bags. Something I would change about this when I make it again is I would probably get the green beans that are cut so they're not so long, or you could cut them yourself. But that's just one thing that I would change so that it's easier to eat. The flavor on this recipe was so on point, and it smelled so good when it was cooking. So once my bacon was done, I cut that up and put that into the green bean mixture in my pot. I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle in a few of the fried onions, and we're going to give that a mix. Over in a Ziploc bag, I'm going to put in 2 sleeves of the butter crackers with more fried onions. We're just going to crush that up and get it mixed really well, and this is going to be our topping for this casserole. In a 9x13, I'm gonna spread this mixture out as evenly as possible, and then we're gonna take the cracker and onion mixture, sprinkle that on top, spread that out evenly. I've also got a stick of butter that I melted down. I'm just gonna pour that over the crackers. And this is gonna bake on 375 for about 15 minutes. This was so good, y'all. I could eat it by itself. It would also be a really good side dish. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next recipe. I'm making a grilled cheese and tomato soup. It was rainy, cold weather. I was just feeling a grilled cheese and tomato soup. So I'm making the Six Sisters stuff recipe. I'll leave it linked down below. So over in my pot, I'm gonna put in 2 cans of the Campbell's tomato soup, and to that I'm gonna add 2 cups of chicken broth. You could use the carton chicken broth, but I'm using chicken bouillon mixed with water. To me, this has a much richer flavor, so I'm gonna add 2 cups of that. I'm gonna go ahead and add in 2 cups of milk, some onion powder, garlic powder, and a little bit of basil. I'm gonna sprinkle in some salt and give this a stir. I almost forgot to add in my half and half, but you'll need 2 cups of that. And we're just gonna give this a stir and we're gonna let it simmer on low for just a few minutes. Tomato soup does not take long at all. It comes together so fast. So if it's a really busy weeknight, this would be a really easy meal. One more thing I almost forgot to add was my dried tomatoes. These are sun-dried tomatoes and I'm just sprinkling in just a few. Over in a separate pot, I'm gonna boil a bag of cheese tortellini. And I did not use this whole bag in my soup. I boiled the whole bag, put maybe a third of that in the soup, and the rest I set aside for my toddler because I knew she wasn't gonna eat the tomato soup. But once that tortellini is done, you can go ahead and add that over to your soup. I'm gonna sprinkle in some Parmesan cheese and this soup will be ready to serve. On the side, I always like to have something with my soup because soup just isn't enough. It doesn't fill me up. So I always like to have some kind of bread or a sandwich with it. I'm gonna make these Gouda grilled cheese sandwiches. This sourdough bread, y'all, makes the best grilled cheese sandwiches. So in my pan, I'm gonna melt down some butter. And the way that I get the butter on both sides of my bread is as soon as that butter is melted, go ahead and put the sandwich down into the pan and I'll flip it immediately so that both sides can soak up that melted butter. And then I'll just grill it up until that cheese is melted. And that's what we're gonna have with our tomato soup. This was so delicious. Tomato soup and grilled cheese is such a classic comfort food meal. It's so easy to make. It's one of those things that you can't really go wrong with. All right, next up, we're gonna make a copycat Panera broccoli cheddar soup. I actually made this a little while back on my main channel and it was so good. I couldn't not share it here on my cooking channel. So here's just an overview of everything you're gonna need. I'm gonna start by cutting up an onion. I'm only gonna use half of this onion, but we're gonna dice that up. We're gonna cut up our broccoli. I'm using fresh broccoli and I'm gonna make sure to cut that up kind of small because it is a soup and you don't want big chunks of broccoli. Once I've got the onion and the broccoli all chopped up, I'm gonna go ahead and melt down some butter. I'm gonna pour in the onion, the broccoli, and also some shredded carrots. I took a shortcut this time and I bought a bag of carrots that's already shredded up so I could just pour those into the pot. So this is when it starts smelling good. We're gonna let that saute until the veggies are soft. By the way, the measurements on these veggies is a cup of carrots, 2.5 to 3 cups of broccoli, and then a half of an onion. All right, so once those veggies are soft, we can go ahead and add in all of our liquid. I always double up the measurements on the liquids for this recipe because the liquid measurements that are in the recipe, I feel like it's not enough, so I just double those. But you're gonna add in some chicken broth, milk, and heavy cream. And I'm just doing 2 cups of each. We're gonna sprinkle in some salt, a little bit of pepper, give this a stir. And this is when you'll also wanna go ahead and sprinkle in 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. We're gonna give this a mix and this is gonna simmer on low for about 15 to 20 minutes. And lastly, I'm gonna add 2 cups of shredded cheddar cheese, give it a stir, let that melt down a little bit, and this will be ready to serve. On the side with ours, I made some garlic breadsticks. I just bought the frozen ones at Walmart and heated those up, and it was so good with this soup. We have also had it with homemade focaccia bread, which I highly recommend doing instead of frozen garlic bread. If you can make some focaccia bread to go with this, that's a really easy bread recipe to do. It is the perfect dipping bread. All right, y'all, moving into the last recipe. This is a pepper jack potato casserole. I think this one was my favorite. It is so full of flavor. So here's an overview of everything you're gonna need. We're gonna go ahead and get started with some bacon here in the skillet, and we're just gonna fry that until it's cooked through. So over in a separate bowl, the bag of frozen hash browns that I had was double the size than what you'll actually need, but you'll need 32 ounces of frozen hash browns. To that, I'm gonna add a can of cream of chicken. I'm gonna add in a cup and a half of heavy whipping cream, a half a cup of melted butter, a half a cup of sour cream, a cup of Parmesan, and then 2 cups of shredded pepper jack cheese, and then just a sprinkle of onion and garlic powder. We're gonna give this a really good mix, and this is gonna go into a 9x13 bacon dish. Right, and then over in a gallon Ziploc bag, I'm gonna get the topping ready for this casserole. So you'll need 2 sleeves of butter crackers, the bacon that we cooked earlier cut up into smaller pieces, and then just some pepper jack cheese. We're gonna give that a really good mix, crush up those crackers, and this is gonna go on top of our casserole. Before we pop this in the oven, I'm gonna sprinkle on just a little bit of paprika. Also, make sure you cover this before you put it in the oven. I forgot to cover mine, and mine almost burnt on top before it was completely heated through. So just make sure that you cover with some foil, but this will bake on 400 for about 45 minutes or so. So that is gonna be all for today's video. All of these recipes were so delicious, and they're all really good, cozy comfort meals to have during this cold weather. So if you're still watching, make sure to leave some kind of food related emoji down in the comments. I hope y'all have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.